Good morning. We will call the Committee of the Whole to order. And who is presenting? Marty?
Good morning, Commissioners. You can hear me, sounds like. Well, at your direction, we've put together a little presentation on SROs. As you know, this is the time of the year that we need to set contracts for the following school years of 2024 and 2025. Currently, current contracts are going to run out in June. So school districts and I, for a budget reason, would like to get the process rolling. So hopefully after the maybe board meeting today, we can have some direction within our office. So we put together a little PowerPoint. And I don't know that I have to tell all of you the benefits of having school resource officers in our schools. I was a school resource officer, and I'm still reaping the benefits, and I hope the kids that I helped or touched back in the day are still reaping those benefits. And so I'm not going to read these. You had a chance to look at our first few slides. I guess the last ones are what we're more interested in. And of course, with Mr. Chair's permission, we would like the superintendent to speak briefly on their thoughts on this program when I'm done. So the goal of our responsibilities is the main goal of SRO is to prevent juvenile delinquency, and I think we do that. I found it firsthand, and we can really reach those troubled youth at times in a different capacity, like some school personnel can. We're educators in the schools as well. So we started SROs back in 2000, and we've been in the Pine Island schools for 24 years, and that benefits the city of Pine Island, the school district, and of course the children. And we were in Kenya until 2021 when they had to make some decisions and they terminated. But what happened right then is Zumbrota School District reached out to us, and so we've now been in Zumbrota School District since 2021. So we've had two school resource officers for 24 years in our county, and the benefits are endless. So that's a little bit of a history. I'm not going to go there. Oops. So as you know, last fall we spent hours and hours trying to figure out actual costs for our city contracts. I never did hear the dollar amount, what that cost the county to even research it, but I'm sure it was in the $30,000, $40,000 range. But we made it to that point. But what we're requesting in our office is to continue, of course, with both school districts with our SRO, and to have it be a similar calculation as we have essentially for the past 24 years. So what and if I don't get it right or can't see it, Christine put these numbers together. So the 2023-2024 current contract, they're paying a $51, almost $52 an hour for 1,600 hours. And that has really worked well because they essentially allow us to go. The school resource officer isn't locked in there 100%. We can go train, we can go help the people in Pine Island, Zumbrota Call, wherever we need to be. We have that flexibility, and we don't really want to lose that. My fear is if we start talking about 100% costs and true costs, that we're literally going to be locked in, and I wouldn't blame the school districts to say, you're not leaving, we're paying you, And now we're filling overtime to have somebody 24/7 in the school. And we just, well, we probably wouldn't have the resources to do that. And I do have concerns about that aspect of it. And like I say, I wouldn't blame the school districts for, if they're paying all of that, 100%, their actual costs, they're gonna want their body in the building. So, so each school right now is paying just shy of $50,000. We've done the calculations, and if we continue where we're at, which is option one here, it actually is only 2.4% increase, and that's because we just hired about 15 new patrol deputies, so the medium salary is decreased. So it's not that big of a jump. So our proposal would be, my best option, would be to do that through 2024-25, and then each district would pay $51,062. What Christine put together is the actual costs of what we discussed, that Goodhue is paying currently is $71.03 an hour. And if we continued, again, we don't know what the fee schedule is going to be for next year, even for city contracts. But if we would continue on the rate we're doing now, you can see the school districts would pay $71 through the end of December, and then the next year would jump to $87 for a total of 1,600 hours like we're doing, but the increase would be significant for the school districts, $128,764 as opposed to $51. So it would double plus. And I don't know that that would be an option. I guess you can hear from the superintendents yourself if that would even be an option to keep the contract. Christine, can you come and explain this one? This is, does this work? Does it work? Yep. So Christine made some assumptions if we lose one or two SROs, right?
Yeah, so we talked in our office, and the sheriff and the chief deputy had said they don't want to lose the connection with the schools if the schools would not want to continue. And so we would like to keep the SROs within our staffing. And so this assumption shows the loss of the revenue with both, if both Zumbrota and Pine Island would get out of their contract, we would lose the revenue of $102,000. And then we would, with the assumption of keeping the SROs on as actual juvenile deputies who would help out in all of the schools. And so, go back to assumption one. So that would be a decrease in our budget of $102,000. The assumption two is the loss of one school district. So we would just bring in the $51,000 in revenue if we kept it at that, the same methodology that we have been, and kept the other SRO as a juvenile deputy, then it would be a decrease to our budget of $51,000.
So what we did discuss, and what I would, let's just say the worst case scenario, if we lose our two SROs in the schools, I would just present at a personnel committee for two more juvenile officers, because all these issues that you see in the schools aren't going to stop, and we would still have to go there anyway. And now if we don't have that personnel, we're going to have to pull from the streets to take these calls. And as you can see, some of these are quite extensive, take a long time to investigate. we would just need those bodies, and I will come back and ask for 2 more people if we lose our SROs. One thing I really wanted to touch on is we just started DARE program in our, in Zumbrota 2 years ago. This is our 2nd year, I think. And it's really been a great program for the youth. It's 2nd grade and 5th grade. In fact, Deputy Curdy has taught it now. And he's really seeing the benefits and the relationships that he builds. And if we can continue that through, if the kids can see a program twice, or see the same deputy or another deputy even teaching it, is a benefit to us. Prior to my tenure here, the county was getting funds from forfeiture, I believe, and they called it counteract funds we would get. But we didn't have a counteract program. We didn't have anything for many, many years. So I questioned it, and then we were lucky the state didn't take it from us, but we started the DARE program, and we're utilizing those funds to do a lot of those programs. So, but really cool thing is I want to share that we've been working with Zumbrota principal and superintendent about an education, well, essentially a law enforcement 101 class that's gone, it's not been in the Goodyear County schools, but it has been in, and I can pass this around. They get high school credit, it's a semester. We teach 19, I think it's 18 or 19 weeks. And probably not just we would get people to come in and speak on topics. And this is just a fledgling program for us, but we are committed to this right now with Zumbrota schools. So it would be bad if we lost our SRO, because then I've committed to this, and I think it's very important. I would have to pull somebody to do that program anyway. So anyway, we're very excited about this. It's something that's never been done. Christine will pass it around. So we're very excited, and I just would not like that to get stamped out in its fledgling process here. And we still will go to schools and do social media. That's one of the biggest things right now for kids, social media issues. We can train them, teach them, I guess, with our SROs. With that said, I guess our office is looking for direction on how to proceed with contracts. Now, I know this isn't going to happen, but last year the board, when we did approve the 1-year contract, the board also approved a 3-year moving forward contracts. I probably think that's not going to happen now, but we'd really like some direction and not have to come back every year. But if that's the case, we'll come back because this is important. But with that said, Mr. Chair, would you entertain a few minutes from both school districts that have our SROs?
Do we have any questions from the board first before anyone comes up? Go ahead, Linda.
Backing up to the cost, Marty? Thank you.
Okay.
So under,
Is it this slide?
options for school contracts, so option 2, which is the hourly rate that's closer to what we, to the true costs. But then county portion is 0, school portion is 100, whereas the current contract is 40/60. What would, yeah, can you walk me through why we wouldn't consider the 40/60 still, even if we went with the full amount of what a deputy really costs?
I think that's the split, is when you take 40% of that and 60% of that, full cost, you get down to the 53, whatever.
60% of the full cost is more like, I don't know, closer to 70,000,
Yeah.
because it's 125,000. So I think that that split had to do with, we were charging different rates for Goodhue until the first of the year, and then changing the rate. But I think, Linda, you're right, that we could make whatever decision you want, or we want, and it might be consistent to say, look, we've been doing 60%, but it probably is better to do 60% of what it actually costs than 60% of part of what it costs.
Yes, I believe that's pretty much kind of where I was
Well,
going with this.
We could have put 40 options in for you, but we
Right.
just went with, if the board chooses to have the school districts pay 100%, which is what I was kind of hearing anyway, we put that option on there, which would be probably the highest they would pay. We could certainly, we could do the numbers and what.
And
you're
it is
right,
right
about
around
70.
71,000.
So I guess my own concern is that without charging what it really, a true cost of a deputy, then the county is subsidizing that. And while I understand if we took 40% of the real cost, we're still subsidizing it, but it seems like it's much more consistent with what we're looking at.
Right, because I think my understanding was in the summertime, then you do use the officers in other ways. I mean, it's not like they don't have a job over the summer, so.
No, but they're paying 60% of the hours they're in the school, not 60% of the total cost. So 60% of the 1,600 hours.
Correct.
And a full year is quite a bit more than 1,600 hours. So they're actually paying probably less than half of the cost of a deputy, or maybe not. On an annual basis, yeah. But to me, it seems like we as the county certainly have some obligation and responsibility as far as law enforcement anywhere in the county, that we do have that obligation. But it also seems to me that the school has responsibility for the safety of their students. And they do that in many ways already, whether it's from fire protection or school nurses or even social workers. So to me, figuring out what we believe is a fair way to divide up that cost, what percent should we be doing, I don't even want to say subsidizing, I want to say what percent are we saying we should pay for, and what percent do we think the school should pay for. One of the reasons I like it as a percent of the full cost is then we don't have to every year come back and figure that out. We can say we're doing this percent of the full cost, and that's what it is. And to me, I think particularly we have this responsibility for communities that we're taking law enforcement overall responsibilities for. For example, Goodhue. I think it's less clear if it's the county's responsibility for school districts that do have a police force. You could argue either way, I guess, on that. But I do think we have some responsibility, but probably not as little as what we've been doing.
Any other questions? All right, we do have a few minutes here. If you would want to come up, I'll give you 3 or 4 minutes, because then we do have a meeting at 9. So if you'd like to, superintendents.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ryan Barnick. I'm the new superintendent as Umbrota Mazeppa, and just want to thank you for letting us come today and considering this. Our intent is to continue with Goodhue County. I've had a wonderful experience with our current SRO. I've been administrator for about 12 years, and he's been nothing but the best, and we appreciate that. In terms of what you're saying exactly, we do have a responsibility as a school district to provide, safety for our students, and what that looks like is a collaboration with Goodhue County. Again, in terms of overall cost, I'll be transparent and honest. We're making some big reductions in ZM right now, unfortunately. Hopeful that the cost to our SRO program doesn't increase too much, so it doesn't result in losing more teachers, but we also understand where you're at on your end. And, you know, for me, I just want to highlight what Sheriff spoke about in terms of the intro to law enforcement. Our hope and plan is long-term, that brings our students back to our communities and hopefully serving and working with you here in Goodhue County or Red Wing or Zumbrota. But the plan is to offer that in high school, get students excited about law enforcement, maybe a couple credits on their way to college, and then come back to southeastern Minnesota and hopefully are employed by you or a local law enforcement agency. So again, thank you for your time and your consideration. I look forward to continuing working with you. Any questions on your end?
Any questions from the board?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tanya Constantine. I'm the superintendent of Pine Island, and I have the great pleasure of being in Zumbrota, Mazeppa as a principal before becoming a superintendent. So I have worked with both Deputy Cody and Deputy Josh here, and Deputy Collins was recently in our district to help us talk about our crisis plan. I have been in education for 30 years in metro districts and in rural. I've probably worked with a dozen SROs, and these are among the best, and I can truly say that. Like Ryan said, I can't imagine if we lost our SROs, but I'm going to be very transparent today. We cannot fund that full cost. We just can't. That number right there is higher than we pay our principals, and they're on a full year contract, so we would be bowing out. And if that happened, I can assure you we would still be contacting Goodhue County probably twice a week. These gentlemen do an excellent job of making relationships with our learners, with our students, with some of the kids of trauma, the kids who might end up in a court system or going down the wrong path, and they circumvent that from the start by making positive relationships with them. I've seen both these gentlemen do this, Cody and Josh, and I saw firsthand last year as principal of Zumbrota, Mazeppa with Josh Curdy. We had some very, very challenging young men who really had a tough time, and I think just the relationship that Josh had with them kept us from having to call 911, and that is definitely what we will be doing, like I said, at least twice a week. It's not like we have major problems in our schools. We don't, but they're just low level enough, you know, with the marijuana being legal now, gummies showing up, the vaping, the occasional fight. Sheriff Marty is correct that we're going to be bogging down the system. And really what we're taking away with that then is it's that whole, that pipeline to prison that you've heard so much about, that we're taking away, that law enforcement looks positive to these kids instead of us calling 911 and now it's a negative. So we're in the same boat you are. We don't have the funding. No one does. So we really implore you to look at sharing the cost.
Thank you.
I appreciate you letting us speak today. Thank you for all you do. It's not an easy job.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from the board?
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. Last night, I was at Hiawatha Valley Mental Health, talking about school-age children and school-age mental health issues and school-age, all that goes with that, and talking with another commissioner from Fillmore County, has a youth from their county that you can't find the right place for them to go. They have a youth in Utah that they are funding because it only takes one child to recoup that cost. Only one child to recoup the cost we're doing. And that cost is going to be by the county in Health and Human Services, in placement, in any number of things. They're paying about 70% of the cost of that officer. If you take the numbers and you divide it out, that's about where they're at. I just don't have a problem with spending those dollars, because we'll spend them as we've been pointed out. We'll be going to the school anyway. It's just a matter of, are we responding to are we reacting or are we proactive? I would rather be proactive, and I've said it before, I would do this in every school, even with the cost, because it is positive. And it is happening in Red Wing, just not from Goodhue County. So I just,
So
from my
Brad-
perspective, I don't think
I'm not sure.
full cost makes sense at all.
Yeah, and I think, I don't want to speak for Linda, but I think both she and I were raising the possibility that the number be 60% of the full cost, okay? Not 60% just of the salary, okay? And so that would still be a very significant reduction for the schools from what it really costs us, but it still would be an increase, okay? So that is sort of the school having to decide how much they value this service, and that's us having to decide how much of this is our responsibility and how much of it is the school's responsibility. So I believe it would go up from roughly 50,000 to 70,000 if we did that 60% of the full cost. So it's an increase, no question about that, but the school is still getting a lot for, they're getting a lot more than what it actually costs in that scenario. So it's not either option 1 or 2, it's saying we don't have to stick with those options, we can consider other options as well.
I guess I would be leaning that way also. I don't, because if we're gonna, fund so much of this program, then we have an obligation to Cannon Falls, we have an obligation to Lake City, Red Wing, KW, so because they're not in this program right now, how do we balance that out?
I agree with that. That's why I was thinking our obligation is most to the places that we actually do the policing or the law enforcement. And I guess I'm not sure why, like with Zumbrota-Mazeppa, they're choosing the county over the Zumbrota-Mazeppa police force. I don't know the answer to that question. And I don't know if you can speak to, that they would charge you what it actually costs. Yeah.
That was before my time, but it certainly came down to cost overall. And then we could go back and bid, we don't want to. Based on your calculation, I think you're looking at like 77,000.
Can you come up to the mic just in case somebody in the audience is trying to hear us?
Sorry, look at this. I think your numbers are looking at 77,000 next year versus 51. So in that scenario, our increase would be up about $26,000. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I didn't write those numbers down, but what I did try to do is go online and see what I could find that other districts are doing.
Sure.
And I found some things. The city of Brainerd for 24-25 is charging the schools $96,000 an officer. So again, they would be supplementing that sum, and I don't know what their costs are. Perham for 24-25 was charging $64,000 an officer. The city of Rochester, the number is from 2021, and so I don't know what they're charging now, so this is 4 years ago, but 4 years ago they were charging $67,000 an officer. So just from what I could find online, and this isn't cherry picking, it's telling you what I could find, our number is quite low.
Yeah, I got that. I agree with you. I think that ultimately for us, we want to continue working with you. The lower the number, the better for us as a school district. Obviously, our funds are limited as well. I just want to point out the key here for all of us is that when they're in our school, we work with them in a super flexible way, obviously, versus the 100%. We would never say, hey, you're stuck in our school when something's happening. I really think that's important with the SRO program is that they're in our building, but also serving the community at any given notice. So we appreciate that.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Anything else from Sheriff's Office?
My other question was, you were saying, well, gee, would we do this for all districts? And I think Brad is saying, yeah, we would, whatever it is that we agree to. And I think, of course, if we took over every district and we're only asking them to cover 60% of the cost, it would cost the county quite a bit. And so is that what we're saying? And maybe you want to speak, Jason.
I mean, I'd much rather see a higher percentage. I mean, it's unfortunate for whatever reason we scheduled this for a half an hour, which it is what it is. If you need my opinion on consensus, if we're gonna stick with 60, I'd much rather see a 70, 30, 25, 75. That the school kicks in more. Larger discussion what we're gonna have here, but that's. Yes, now. So, if you need, it is 9 o'clock, if you need information for consensus, I'll move with a 60-40, but I'd rather see the school pay a higher percentage.
Chair, we could add more time on a different day if you'd like for a larger committee of the whole on this topic as well.
Yep, I guess I would like to see that. This is pretty important. We do need to discuss it.
I think, I agree, it does take more time. But I also know school districts are putting budgets together. They have a different budget schedule than we do. And they need to know now. Superintendents could tell us, they're on deadlines as when they have to notify teachers they're not gonna rehire them. And those deadlines are either here or going past pretty quickly. So we do need to, if we're gonna discuss this farther, we need to come to some conclusion shortly to give staff direction.
And if there is a consensus today, it would be, I think, the 60-40 of the full cost, if there is a consensus. I don't know.
In
would you-
consensus?
60-40 of the full cost isn't, okay.
Of the 1,600 hours, not of the whole annual.
Well, I think I did 60% of the 128.
50% of the 128.
Yeah, 77, 258.40. My phone is right.
I would tell you, I think you need to give that, and I would be in consensus of a one-year contract at that rate, and however we're gonna schedule it, if the superintendents can't wait a month or two to.
Well, if I can interject, it's more than just the school district's budget. We are in a hiring process right now. If we lose 2 SROs, you can imagine what that's gonna do to our processes. So we are on a time crunch, to be honest. And even with the 60-40 at whatever fee you choose, they still might not go with us. So they're gonna have to take that back to their boards, and that's even gonna take some time. So I just wanted to say that.
Well, I wouldn't have a problem saying, if you need the information now, doing 60-40 for 1 year, it'd be nicer to have a long-term view of that. But if you need the information today, or if the school districts need the information today, I could be agreeable to that even.
Okay. And Linda would be, I would be. So it appears you have consensus for the 60-40 based off the 128.
Also with the foresight too, that if there is a question mark on how the school districts are coming back, we should also give the sheriff some direction too of, don't hire anybody for the next couple months if we're concerned of how this plays out.
Yeah. Yes, yeah.
I guess, Ryan, do you have?
Just a quick calculation, possibly if you were to settle at the 60-40 of the hourly rate, we could go back and calculate the actual hours of the officer being in our building and consider that cost. For example, 172 student days or 73 student days, depending on what school district you're in, times 8 hours, times the hourly cost, which might bring down the cost for us overall, which would be helpful, but also fall in the 60-40 range that you might be looking at.
What's next? Is that our consensus? Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. We appreciate everyone coming in.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks.